You've come to the right place. If you're a course creator looking to build more impact, income, and freedom, LMScast is the #1 podcast for course creators just like you. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of the most powerful tool for building, selling, and protecting engaging online courses called LifterLMS. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. My name is Chris Badgett, and I'm joined today with a special guest, LifterLMS co-founder, Thomas Levy. Welcome back on the show, Thomas.
Hi, Chris.
Today, we are doing a review of Chris Lema's CaboPress event, which is something we've been to several times now. We're returned,
Four times.
We're returned. We liked it so much, we've gone back many times. So we wanted to do this CaboPress review and talk about it, both just to kind of share what we get out of the event, but also just as kind of a case study on what a mastermind event, a quality mastermind event could be like if you're thinking about creating something like that. So CaboPress is a business mastermind in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico that Chris Lema organizes. I think this year it was about 30 people, and that's included attendees and some like 6 or so hosts that help facilitate conversations. They're not lectures, they're more conversations, which do happen in a swimming pool. And it's at a very nice, all-inclusive 5-star resort called the Fiesta Americana. All the food and drink and everything, lodging, it's all taken care of. It's a wonderful event. And Thomas and I just wanted to get together and jam about what we like about it and why CaboPress is awesome. Sound like a plan, Thomas?
Oh yeah.
I'm just curious, what's your #1 benefit that you get out of CaboPress? Like, why have you decided it was a good idea to keep going back?
Yeah. I think more than anything, and I almost feel like a broken record here, but it's an opportunity to kind of like sit outside of the business, but still work on the business, which, I mean, we're a small team. We've got, what is it, 7 people now. And actually the first time we went to CaboPress, we were much larger than this. So
as a service company.
Yeah, as a service company. So now kind of looking back at the past 4 years, it's interesting to see how we've come. This was, I think, maybe the first year I felt like we actually maybe kind of belonged at CaboPress. The previous couple of years, I was always kind of like, this is too much money. Like, we don't necessarily like this is nearly fiscally irresponsible for us to be attending this conference or this event. Not working. Yeah. So actually for me, it was really cool this year because I didn't touch my laptop, with one exception, but I didn't do any business work the whole time I was there. I probably could have left my laptop at home, getting back to the point, it's a great opportunity to kind of sit at 30,000 feet, look down at the business, sit outside the business and solve large business problems, high leverage problems. I mean, not necessarily only problems, you know what I mean? There's opportunities and good things there too. But I don't know. I'm always kind of thinking like, what's the problem? Even when it's good stuff, there's still a problem there to solve. So I don't know. That's a big opportunity for me, is just to get out. As a remote team, Chris and I don't spend a lot of time as co-founders together in person. I do think we work really well face to face over camera like this, but I don't know. There's an amount of energy that and everybody I've talked to who has distributed or remote teams says the same thing. It's just you got to get together once in a while in person. There's a certain aspect of collaboration that you can't recreate over Skype or Zoom or Slack. So
Thomas and I live on separate sides of the United States. Coast to coast. We're 4,000 miles apart or whatever.
Yeah. So, and it's really hard to get to where Chris lives. As I've found, every time he travels to the West Coast, I feel bad because he's got to take red eyes. And I just went to Maine for the first time about a week or two ago, and man, it's hard to get there.
Well, it didn't help that your flight got delayed on the way in and on the way out, and you had to spend somewhere. But going back to CaboPress, I agree with you. It's all about making remote work, as they say, and getting strategic, working on the business, not in the business. It's such a powerful opportunity. But there's also just like that. Chris has done a great job curating a group of people, entrepreneurs in the WordPress space, or not necessarily. There's people outside of WordPress there too, both on the service side and on the product side. And people, like you mentioned, Thomas, sometimes, entrepreneurship, just like in any industry, it's easy to like compare yourself, or especially when you're starting out, feel insecure or whatever about like, should I even be here and all this stuff. These are just entrepreneur issues. And there's a thing I call plus minus equal. I heard that from somebody else. I can't remember. Otherwise I'd give them credit. But when you go to hang out with people that run businesses like yours or similar to yours, and some of them have more experience or more success, that's the plus. Some people have less experience, less success, that's the minus. And some people are just about right where you are, that's the equal. It's really powerful to get in a group of people where you have that plus minus equal dynamic going on, where you're learning from each other, asking advice, being vulnerable about what's not working, giving somebody honest feedback that may not be comfortable, or like, it's not sugar coated or whatever. I mean, these are all part of the social learning elements, which we're a big fan of over at LifterLMS. But any comments on the plus minus equal thing or the social part of CaboPress?
Yeah, I mean, Chris and I talked about this briefly, but we met up in person, Chris and I, just the two of us, I don't know, over the summer sometime a couple of months ago, just to kind of do like a founder's getaway and spend some time on the business. And it was really, really valuable. But because we simulated exactly what we do at CaboPress every year, which is like get outside of the business, don't worry about support requests and pre-sales emails, and
like literally disconnect and go.
Yeah, just kind of disconnect. I mean, we were on the internet, but we were not working, like doing our day-to-day inside the business. And that was valuable. But the opportunity to do that same thing at CaboPress in this mastermind group with other entrepreneurs that aren't necessarily have similar business. I mean, there's a lot of people that have similar business to ours, like WordPress plugin companies. But just being around other people, that social aspect, all that kind of higher leverage thinking that Chris and I are maybe doing on our own about our business, you kind of get to workshop, even sometimes accidentally, with other entrepreneurs. And I don't know, that's been, I think, really valuable for us over the years. And, for me, I've ended up with all these accidental revelations. Chris and I always, before Cabo, like we've gotten into a routine because now we've been to CaboPress 4 times, but we kind of like talk about what we're looking to get out of CaboPress before we get to CaboPress. And I always feel like slightly unprepared because Chris is a lot more organized than I am. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever, we'll see what happens. And partially that's just because I'm so caught up in the whirlwind of the business that I don't have time to sit down and figure out like what I want to do with my week off, my coming week.
And I just want to provide a small caveat. What Thomas means by prepared, something I do, because I really want to get the most out of the event, is I just look at the attendees and spend some time just looking at the businesses that the people who are coming have, so that when I see them in person, I have a little bit more context. And I think about like, oh, maybe how might we be able to help each other or whatever. It's just a little research. That's all it is. But I also, like Thomas, show up like with just an open mind to what may happen, because it's not something you can just plan. Yeah, I'm going to get insight about A, B, C, D.
Yeah, I heard somebody say a while ago is like when you approach a guru or a mentor, you have to come with an empty cup, because if your cup is already full, you're not going to get anything from it. They can't pull anything more to that, so you're kind of going to dump everything out and approach it empty. So even though I'm kind of just like, I don't have time to prepare for this, I fall back to that, like, let's just go and be open and see what happens. And that's proved really useful to me because it, like, kind of being immersed in this group of 30 to 35 entrepreneurs. The way Chris has everything set up, Chris Lema has everything set up, is like we have these workshops in the morning or sessions in the morning. And then the whole rest of the day, it's kind of free time.
It's open.
Yeah, it's just open. And it's a pretty big resort, but it seems like everybody kind of gravitates in two different spots, which is either the hotel lobby or like the swim up bar. So after your sessions, you just kind of go to one of those two places and you find more people to talk to stuff about, And you know, we're all business owners, so even if we're just having casual conversations, it flows in and out of like non-business related things and business related things. And as a result of those conversations, I've had so many accidental revelations, just in casual conversation, where, you know, it's a problem that we've been having at LifterLMS. I didn't bring up, I didn't come to CaboPress with that as like something that I wanted to figure out how to solve, but just in casual conversation with my lunch group, it finally hit me what the problem was, you know, and I didn't necessarily come up with a solution, but then over the next 3 or 4 days, you know, we talked about it. I talked about it with Chris, and we talked about it with more people at the group, in sessions and things like that. And I don't know, that was like tremendously valuable to me. And if I think back through all the Cabo presses, I have some example of something like that every year, where I didn't even realize that this was something that was like paining me, or preventing me from doing good work or causing issues in the business. But just from talking to people, and like Chris said a moment ago, being vulnerable, about, you know, my feelings and the business and things like that, I was presented with solutions and opportunities. So anyway, that's all kind of the social thing. Like, you don't get, like, Chris and I are so close to our business that we might not have ever had that revelation. But when you express that same problem to somebody outside of our business, you're presented with solutions that you might not get otherwise. So, I mean, I guess that's the value of a mastermind in general. I don't know if that's something exclusive or special to CaboPress, but for me, it's just, I don't know, the whole thing is so casual. I don't know, there's a part of me that just hates structure. And maybe that's authority. I don't know, whatever. But like the idea of like a really structured mastermind with a hot seat and stuff like that, it's not really like that at CaboPress. But I think the value is there regardless. And I don't know, it really works for me because it's comfortable for me to have a conversation like that in a hot tub at the end of the day, as opposed to like sitting in I don't know, where do you have masterminds even? I don't know, in like conference rooms or something, and
different things like
wear a
that.
suit. I don't know. I don't know. I've never been in a real mastermind, so maybe I'm crapping on something that I don't have any real reason to crap on. But I don't know. I like the format. It's nice. It's casual. And man, the tacos are so good. Those fish tacos.
I want to come back to the food in a second. But you mentioned just the whole social learning thing. And I think there's a value in building relationships. For example, we've, you know, gotten to know the Beaver Builder team there. We use Beaver Builder on the LifterLMS sites. And yeah, I'm not saying we use Beaver Builder because we met them there, but it's just really cool to meet other companies in your industry and develop relationships with them long term. Like, we've run into them at other conferences, and we're going to see them at other conferences we go to. And there's just power in relationships within your industry in general that is, I think entrepreneurship, especially online business, if you're online, can be kind of isolating, work from home. Like, so to actually get out and be around people is, it's a healthy part of human nature, which online entrepreneurs can be uniquely challenged with. And some of the stuff from spending so much time working online, I mean, it's a skill, especially if you're more introverted, to network or be vulnerable or give feedback. These are all good skills to have just as a human being that happens to be in business.
There's an interesting crossover there too, since we're a WordPress based learning management system. So I mean, we're kind of enmeshed in the open source community of WordPress.
Which is very communal, right?
Yeah, it's very, very communal. And so it's interesting too, because I think there is a tendency to consider everybody competition. And Beaver Builder is not our competition at all. But I think there's just some, I don't know, at least in my head, I'm always kind of competing against other businesses, even though like they're not necessarily in the same space, and they're not a direct competitor. There's this tendency to try to compete, whether it be revenue numbers or number of users or any kind of those things. But when you come together at an event like CaboPress, and you put these businesses together, and we've actually seen at CaboPress direct competitors sit down over lunch together, who are direct competitors, and they get value from one another. I think they get value. I've definitely seen them sit down together. But I don't know. It's just there's an interesting thing that's happening in WordPress, where WordPress is an open source community, and I don't know. It's pretty cool that you can go there and like you can share business ideas and not be competitors. and work together. And I see with our plugin, it takes more like just being in WordPress means you need to interact with other plugins, because not every plugin can do everything that every user wants it to do. Not every theme can either. And every plugin is going to run into plugin conflicts with another plugin. Every theme is going to run into theme conflicts with a plugin. And the approach we kind of take to that is like, well, let's reach out to the other developers instead of just always saying like, go talk to them, have them fix it. It's like, let's all work together. We're not competitors. Both we have a shared user. So to get to interact with these other companies and these other businesses at a higher level is, I think, really cool. And it's kind of like, it echoes what we should be doing as a WordPress-based business. Although, I don't know, tangentially, I think this year there was like the most amount of non-WordPress based businesses that I've seen at CaboPress thus far. And to a certain extent, I'm very positive that Chris Lema has done that intentionally.
Well, at the end of the day, we're technology companies solving business problems.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really WordPress, Yeah, it was really cool to get outsiders' perspective in that they're not necessarily a WordPress-based business, and like you said, they're technology-based companies, or solving problems for entrepreneurs or business owners or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. That was like a really good, just as an aside, that was a really cool thing to be like, oh, well, this guy, like, this isn't necessarily a WordPress business problem. This is just a business problem. And to get, insight and perspective from outside of the WordPress space was pretty valuable to me this year.
And it's an application-based event. So the group that comes is highly curated, which is really cool because, I mean, it's a online business or whatever is like a big niche, but I think Chris puts a lot of effort into being really thoughtful about the group that he wants to put together there. And it's just so, as someone on the receiving end, as an attendee or whatever, I just can't say how refreshing and great it is to hang out with other business or with other people that are in very similar situations. As a remote company, that's not always easy to do, especially if you live in a rural area or a place that's not necessarily a tech hub or whatever. So
yeah.
And I just wanted to add, the other thing is it's fun too. Like there's like a little reset that I always look forward to, just non-business related, where it's just, we get out and high level strategic on the business, but it's also an opportunity to break the routine and just do something completely different for during the business week, Monday to Friday, which is nice. So it's a vacation too. It really is. I mean, I'm tired when I'm done because there's a lot of like networking and talking and brain bending going on. But it's also a really beautiful spot.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I mean, we sat out in the ocean and we fed some fish, and get to hang out in the hot tubs and the pools, and there's an open bar the entire time. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely. I always feel bad because I'm going to Cabo. Like I tell my wife, I'm going to Cabo again on a business trip. But she sees pictures of me where I'm hanging out in a pool. That's like what I'm doing. So it's both. It's both. Yeah.
I would say probably the biggest benefit, like CaboPress isn't necessarily. It's not like a $50 WordCamp. This is you got to fly, and it's not an inexpensive ticket. But the power of getting one good idea from the event can be priceless or extremely high value. And we never walk away with one good idea. We have a whole suitcase full of good ideas and experiments we want to run, tests we want to make, partnerships that we want to explore. It's kind of like a growth accelerator where the currency is not money, it's just ideas. So like one good idea, for me, it's like a no-brainer because I know we're going to have some really good ideas that emerge.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. And as a bootstrap company, I think, I think probably every year at CaboPress, we've sat down, you and I, and had a conversation about seeking funding. But at the end of the day, it's like you and I know how to do work. And that's what we've been doing for 4.5, 5 years now. We just, I heard a while ago that like ideas aren't worth anything without execution. But I think what you and I know is that like we can execute, and we will execute,
And we do.
and we do execute, you know? So yeah, I love the idea of like an accelerator with the currency of ideas. And
yeah, if you're watching
cool
this,
way to put it. Yeah.
if you're watching this video, like, oh, I don't know if I can, is it worth it? That's just how I justified it myself. I'm like, I know I'm going to walk away with some great ideas. It's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. And I mean, realistically, I said at the very beginning, like, I think it's always been like the past couple of years, or the first couple of years rather, it was like a question in our mind, like, should we spend the money on this event, you know? But after leaving every year, it's been like, absolutely, that was worth the money. And I, you know, and I can look back and like pinpoint things that we've done in our business after each CaboPress, as a result of ideas that we were generated or conceived or solidified at CaboPress that have justified that cost. You know, it's like, yes, we got this idea, we implemented this thing, and it changed our business in this way, and therefore was worthwhile. You know. I could probably sit down and pull out some concrete examples, but I'm not going to do that right now because that's not that important. But yeah.
Well, if somebody were to ask me, like, what's the key to your survival or success as a business, I would probably put CaboPress at the top of the list. Yeah. And I first came across CaboPress, the idea just in some blog post or social media, something. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. And then I came back, I'm like, whoa, that was the first time we went. We're like, whoa. And if you'd like to see our progression with CaboPress, you can go to the LifterLMS blog and search for CaboPress, or just search. And we wrote a post every year after we left. And this, if you're watching, this video is embedded inside of a post on our blog where we, write up more about CaboPress. But it's, I just want to talk a little bit about Chris Lema. I call him the mastermind behind the mastermind, because Chris is a very strategic person. Anybody who knows Chris, and I think I've heard Chris himself joke about, like, everything's on purpose. Like, he's always got like a strategy operating, and he's just he's a sharp thinker, and he's just extremely strategic. So just in how he designed the mastermind event, I was thinking we could jam on some of the really cool things that Chris has done to make it great. Number one, I just want to say the food and the lodging and the environment. It's all taken care of. Like, so when you arrive, which is different from going to other conferences, at least in my experience, is like, not everything is taken care of. So you have to spend mental energy, like, what are we going to do for dinner, or who are we going to sit with, or whatever. Like, there's all this planning that you have to do that takes up space. So CaboPress is only like Monday through Friday with 3 full days and 2 half days or whatever. But that time is maximized to the hilt, including the blank space you talked about, Thomas, in the afternoons, where there is no plan scheduled, but that is the plan.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And, the other thing with the schedule, I always, like, most of the conferences that I've been attending over the past 4 or 5 years have been like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it's like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday or something like that, but most of them end on a Saturday or Sunday. And then maybe there's a travel day there, and then you get back and it's like back to work. And with CaboPress, you get home and it's like, oh, it's Saturday. Like, I can, because as much as it is fun and relaxing, it's also, like you said, it's a little bit exhausting. So there's like, and I
think it's the perfect length of time. Like,
oh, totally. Yeah. But I just like that I can get home and then I have a weekend before I need to, like, dive back into everything to kind of like recharge and digest, and let all the ideas sink in and solidify before I'm like right back into the grind again. And I guess there's ways to combat that anyway, but I think that's really cool. The one thing I love about the format is that the sessions are conversations, not PowerPoint presentations. And to me, that's really, really valuable. And I think it might just be somehow how I learn or digest information. I get so bored sitting there watching a projector, I guess when I was in school, a PowerPoint today. I get bored, and my go-to really is that I pull open my laptop and I start writing emails or Googling things, or just doing whatever, like just killing time with busy work, I guess. And that's kind of like my MO at most conferences. So I found ways that when I go to conferences to get myself out of that, and like not do that. But at CaboPress, Chris puts us in a pool, and yeah, there's like there's iPhones that you can bring in the pool and stuff like that. But most people just go into the pool, and we don't take our technology with us.
Or the sun's too bright, you wouldn't even be able to see.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. So for me, that's just like, it's really like it helps me stay engaged. And I think there's also like kind of a social pressure there, where because everybody is so engaged, everybody else is so engaged. And it also allows the presentations, the hosts, or the presenters or the hosts, to kind of direct the conversation based on the needs of the audience, as opposed to coming like. So I even think, and we've had the opportunity to talk to some hosts where they have an idea what they want to talk about, but they don't come with notes and presentations, I think for the most part. I don't know. So to me, that format of that conversation, that conversation, not that presentation, is still valuable. And you make of it what you want it to be, essentially. I don't know. I think it's just a brilliant format, and it's something I haven't seen. I mean, once in a while you'll go to a conference and they'll have like little breakout sessions like that where it is a conversation. But like CaboPress is only that. Yeah. And I just love it. I think it's a great format.
Yeah. And Chris is also, it's not the same thing every year. So because we've come back, there's many other people who have come back, or they've gone twice or whatever. It's not the same thing again. It evolves with time. And I think that is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool too. Just like looking at, I mean, as a business owner, I realize that CaboPress is a business venture for Chris Lema. He's making, or I hope he's making money off this event, because it's really valuable.
Well, there's also the concept of relationship capital.
Yeah.
Not just money. Like, I'm just saying
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's like a famous quote, like your network is your net worth, or something like that. I think that's Zig Ziglar or something.
Yeah.
But CaboPress is definitely a hack to build your network. But sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
What were you saying?
No, I just mean we've got to see how the conference has. There hasn't been any drastic changes, but I feel like each year there's an iteration on experiments that were run the previous year, and it's just cool to see how the conference changes ever so slightly every year. And I also like, if you're at,
that's like a software thing. It's like it's a pivot, or it's like an iteration.
Yeah. And I think what I've seen is the size of the conference has adjusted over the years. I think the first year we went, it was about the size it was this year. It grew a little bit, it shrunk a little, or I guess it grew a bit, and then it grew a bit more, and now it's shrunk back down. And I think that has, I don't know, Chris Lema, I'm just theorizing on like what's going on here, but I think you're trying to find like the perfect number. Like how big can it get before it's no longer as, as intimate? Because I think that intimacy and the vulnerability that we're talking about kind of go hand in hand, I think. Or if you're at a conference, like we're going to go to WordCamp US, there's going to be a couple thousand people there. And the intimacy that we come to CaboPress prepared to engage in is not going to be the same as the intimacy at WordCamp US. You just can't have that with that many people. So, but like, how many people can you have before it starts to have a reverse effect where you can't be that vulnerable anymore? I don't know the correct answer to that question. It's interesting to watch the business of CaboPress, or the format kind of be adjusted little by little. So,
well, I just want to thank Chris for putting all that together, and I know our team often like braces for impact when we come back, because they're like, all right, where are we going? Like, what's new?
Yeah.
They know something's coming. But I want to just do a quick segment with you, Thomas. Let's assume somebody's listening to this or watching this, and they're considering going, or they got tickets or whatever, and they're going to go to their first CaboPress or even another event like it. But let's just say CaboPress specifically. What tips do you have for someone, just general tips about how to get the most out of the event?
Yeah, I would definitely bring sunblock and like apply liberally. That's not a really good tip though. But I mean, actually it is though, because I mean, if you're sunburnt like crazy, you're not going to have a good time. I think being vulnerable is probably, I cried at CaboPress this year, and I wouldn't share too many details about that, but like I flat out just cried. And I mean that in a good way,
Yeah.
And that's like a direct result of, I don't know, like you gotta, I think I've had to go there realizing I don't have all the answers, because if I go there with all the answers, I'm not going to get anything out of it. So I think that's like a really important point is like, we're not trying to, I don't want to go to that mastermind trying to only provide value to everybody else. I want to take something too. And so there, I mean, there's got to be a balance there, right? But so I have to know what I know, and I have to know what I don't know, you know. And as a result of knowing what I don't know, I've been able to be vulnerable, and get really, really valuable feedback. And sometimes feedback is brutal, you know what I mean? Sometimes that really hurts, and I mean that's. But I mean, if you allow that to kind of sink in, as opposed to like putting up your guard and being defensive and trying to like push that away, you're going to get the most amount of value out of it, you know? So I think that's what I did this year. And that's what I would recommend is like, it's okay to have a problem to not know the answer, you know? And there's people there that are going to help you. So I think that would be like my number one recommendation is just, well, I guess, like I said before, just like empty your cup and just go in like open, to what people have to share or say. And I think probably also know that just because somebody gives you a piece of feedback doesn't mean that's correct or what you have to do. We're still in charge of our business here, you know, so.
But it's from a highly curated group of people. So the odds of it being good are pretty high, but you're right.
Pretty high.
Everything should be tested.
Everything should be tested. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, so the ideas that we're taking away from CaboPress this year, we're running tests on, you know, we're looking at the data and we're seeing like, is this going to work? And we think it is. We're pretty sure it is. And we trust the people who gave us these advice and this feedback and these suggestions. But we're going to let our revenue determine objectively whether or not it was a good idea. Yeah, I don't know. What about you? What are your tips? I'm interested.
I have just a fast list. So these are a lot of little things. Yeah. So you're seeing Thomas and I's personality here, but my first is actually related to what Thomas was just making light of right there, which is to bring your co-founder. Like I'm the CEO of Lifter. Thomas is a CTO. We don't actually like follow traditional rules of like what the job descriptions there. We just play to our strengths and we work well together, and we have very different personalities and skill sets and everything. So by going to CaboPress together, we're really different people, which makes us a good business partnership. But we can, we're together a lot and enjoying time together because we don't do that a lot, but we're also like attending different things, meeting with different people. So we're actually getting even more benefit, I think, than like if you go by yourself. Now, if you don't have a business partner, that's fine. But if you do have a co-founder, I would recommend going together. So that's my other tip. My first tip. I've been back to Cabo. This is our fourth time around, and I know my way around the resort. I can mentally like see where everything is. I know the drill. I know where to get food, and I know all that stuff. But I remember the first time I went, I know how to get from the airport there, all that. Like I understand, but it can be a little intimidating your first time, and just go, just spend time with people who have been there before and just don't be afraid to ask for like, how does whatever work? Or where do I find an X? Because people that already kind of know the drill are happy to help. The other one is you get out of it what you put into it. So when you do have that downtime, you may need to go to your room and recharge or whatever, but this is a highly group, which I do. Like there's moments where I go and I just take a moment to myself, but I really try to maximize the time I'm there with meeting people, being strategic with Thomas, or just intentionally focusing on enjoying the experience. So you get out of it what you put into it.
If I could just piggyback on that, I am like not an extrovert. So spending 5 days or 3.5 days, like with other people, is tiresome to me, like it's not what I want to do. But, I also realized that I didn't go there to, I'm not at this event to, sit in my room by myself, I can do that at home, and I do that. Like that's what I'm going to do when we're done with this podcast. I do that the majority of the year. So it's always uncomfortable for me, and I have to make a conscious effort to go. Like during that free time, it is not natural for me to go to a swim up bar and hang out with people that I maybe don't know that well. That's not what I want to do with my time, but making that effort proves really valuable. So to me, I'm just kind of like, I'm a weightlifter and I've done CrossFit for a while, and it's always like there's this motto that's like, you rest when you're dead, so for me, it's like, when I'm like at CaboPress, is like, I can rest and do what's comfortable when I'm done there. But when I'm there, like, let's just keep working and keep pushing, and make the most of that experience, so.
I'm pretty introverted myself too. So there's a moment where like Thomas and I depart at the LAX airport and I put my earbuds in. I'm like, I'm finally like alone again.
Yeah.
But it's, even though I'm surrounded by all these people in the airport, but that's actually one of the things I love is the plane ride home. You're still like kind of in no man's land between your normal reality and this event. So you have time to really, that's another tip I have is, don't just get ideas, but like really, like Thomas and I spent some time together and separately, like listing out like action items. Like, how are we going to take this idea and put it into action, whether that's to run a test or just go ahead and implement something or delegate something to a team member or whatever. So don't just go for ideas, go for action and implement as soon as possible. And my final tip is, this is my best tip. And it's that I actually extend CaboPress for way longer than it is in Mexico by inviting people I meet on our podcast, LMScast. So the conversation continues even beyond CaboPress with this great group of people. Now, of course, in the podcast format, I'm serving the course creation community. So the conversation's going to be, it's not really a mastermind, but I'm continuing the conversation in ways that benefit the course building community, which is great because there's so many great people that attend CaboPress and have so much value to share. And a lot of people have something that's relevant to a course creator. So I get to continue conversations beyond CaboPress, which I would encourage people to do if you make a friendship or a business relationship, to keep the conversation going. So those are our tips. That's a review of CaboPress, Chris Lema's CaboPress review that we wanted to roll out from Thomas and I over here at LifterLMS. Thank you, Chris, for putting on a great event. And Thomas, any final words?
Man, those fish tacos.
And that's a wrap for this episode of LMScast. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I hope you enjoyed the show. This show was brought to you by LifterLMS, the #1 tool for creating, selling, and protecting engaging online courses to help you get more revenue, freedom, and impact in your life. Head on over to LifterLMS.com and get the best gear for your course creator journey. Let's build the most engaging, results-getting courses on the internet.